Thank you for introduction to me. I'm one of the delegates of Japan Federation of Bar Associations. Please refer to the fact sheet distributed over there, which shows you damage and figures in the most affected areas by the earthquake, tsunami, and the nuclear accident. Firstly, I will tell you about the situation faced by female victims. After the disaster, most people were left living in evacuation shelters because of a sense of values about the allocation of work roles between men and women. However, most of the evacuation shelters were being run by men, and women were basically excluded from participation in the decision-making processes. As a result, women's needs were being largely ignored. In the evacuation shelters, for example, there is little privacy because it is open space without private areas separated by walls. This creates difficulties for everything from breastfeeding through to getting changed. Further, things that women need, everything from makeup to women's sanitary materials, etc., were being overlooked. It was obvious that women were faced to bear in many aspects. Women were facing an excessive burden of work due to the sense of stereotypes already I stated. Most of the domestic chores were performed by women. It is assumed, for example, that cooking at the evacuation center is the responsibility of the women. Additionally, publicly provided nursing services have become largely dysfunctional, so the burden women face in performing this work has also increased. Violence against women has occurred in the post-quake climate, and there are concerns that it may be getting worse. A kind of violence against women has emerged, such as sexual violence occurring during power blackouts and harm affected due to domestic violence that happened after a family had moved to temporary house or hotel for evacuation. Effective means to prevent this kind of violence have not been established, however, and even in cases where abuse victims have been publicly noted, most of these have not resulted in official notification to the police. Moreover, there are few places where an individual's woman can work out her distressing circumstances, and few opportunities for a woman to alleviate the psychological stresses she faces. Non-Japanese women living in Japan who don't have strong ties in community are especially isolated. There is no system in place for personal consultations that abused or distressed women can utilize, so there is an urgent need to establish mechanisms to protect disaster victims from violence and distress. Next is about the situation faced by women affected by the nuclear accident. This part will be explained by Ms. Kazuko Ito. I will only tell you a few points. As the earthquake struck in areas of industrial decline, measures to support industrial recovery have been put off. Further, there has been a trend focused mainly on temporary workers towards taking the earthquake disaster as an opportunity to terminate employment. As women make up 70% of those temporary workers, it is women's employment that is suffering greater instability. Single mothers are especially challenged by these conditions. now I will tell you problems stemming from views about the household unit. The majority of systems provide support for quake victims through donations, etc., supply their money to the household as a unit. This results in unfair distribution to women disaster victims. Directing payment to the household as a unit without regard to the individual circumstances of each family mean that it is a man of each household who is traditionally deemed the head of the family who receives the support payments. This exacerbates inequality in the decision-making processes within the household and further impoverished women who are living separate from some family members due to domestic violence, etc. Information from provided by the government, the Gender Equality Bureau of the Government Cabinet Office is rarely not being reflected at the current phase. The Gender Equality Bureau lacks status and power. With the experience of the big earthquakes in 1995 and 2004, gender equal participation in planning and perspectives of both men and women were clearly prioritized in the amendment of the Basic Disaster Management Plan of 2005 and in the second and the third Basic Plan for Gender Equality. Stress was placed on promoting gender participation in planning for disaster prevention and the environment. The reality is, however, that only one of the 50 members of the Government Reconstruction Design Council in response to the quake is a woman. And the committees for earthquake recovery in each of the three prefectures, Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima, has only one woman member. Of course, it is not satisfactory to just make up the numbers, but with the conditions as they are, it is hardly possible for the views of women, who hardly have a voice, to be properly represented and reflected in policy. Finally, I will tell you our lessons. The lack of respect shown to the right of women after the quake will probably elicit surprise in the international community. This is, however, nothing more than a reflection of the backward efforts of Japanese society toward gender equal planning participation. What we have learned through this disaster is that problems that exist in normal times are exacerbated under the condition of confusion and hardship that result from a disaster. We have to truly understand that persistent effort toward gender equal participation in planning are not something that can be just habitually neglected. We must resolve ourselves to strengthen our effort in the future toward advancing gender equal planning and making it a normal and established part of our society. Thank you very much.